Clint Eastwood is a famous actor and director who rose from humble beginnings to conquer Hollywood. But behind his steely gaze and constant on-screen presence is a life full of hardships, from moving around a lot as a child to the mental toll of early job problems. His journey wasn't easy. He had panic attacks, a terrible plane crash, and the death of his father, but he overcame these problems and went on to become one of Hollywood's most famous actors. Did Clint Eastwood's troubled past shape the legend he became? Read until the end to find out. On May 31st, 1930, little Clint Eastwood was born at St. Francis Hospital in San Francisco. He was so heavy that the nurses called him Samson, and his parents agreed. Clinton Sr. and Ruth Ney Runner had a family tree with English, Scottish, Dutch, German, and Irish roots. Clint even had a Mayflower passenger in his family tree. Later, in the 1930s, a younger sister named Jean Bernhard joined the family. Clint's dad had a hard time keeping a regular job. He tried working as a salesman and even as a detective in San Francisco. The Eastwood family moved around a lot during the 1930s, but by 1940 they found stability in wealthy Piedmont, California. Forget those years. The Great Depression tales. Clint sometimes says that the Eastwoods were living well because they had a pool. Unfortunately, school wasn't Clint's strong suit. He had to play catch-up with summer classes in Piedmont Junior High because he got bad grades, and his rebellious side really came out in Piedmont High School, where he wrote an obscene message on the scoreboard and set fire to an effigy on the school lawn. He was quickly kicked out of school for those actions. Teachers at Oakland Technical High saw a spark of talent in Clint and pushed him to be in school plays, but he wasn't interested. He was more interested in fast cars, girls, and practicing his hobbies like tennis and golf, even though he could have been a good basketball player. Clint liked playing pursuits by himself, and he worked on car engines. Among other things, he learned how to fix airplanes and got so good at playing the piano that a friend remembers his fingers actually bleeding from practice. There is a big question mark over the records, and friends like Fritz Miz, she thinks he just quit school to have fun somewhere else when his father moved to Seattle in early 1949. Clint found a short-term place to stay with his friend Harry Pendleton in Oakland, and by chance he was invited to a party in Malibu, where he met film director Howard Hawks. This was a big turning point in his life. But before Hollywood, he worked as a logger in Springfield, Oregon, as a lifeguard after getting his Red Cross certification, and even played ragtime piano in an Oakland bar. Talk about a crazy life. Start with raw ability and some lucky breaks. Pave his way, or was he has been guided by fate his whole life? Hold on, things are about to get a lot more interesting. More interesting, Clint Eastwood joined the Army during the Korean War in 1951, but instead of being sent to war, he was sent to Fort Worth, California. Being a swimming teacher is a safe job, right? Things can get crazy sometimes. September 30th, 1951. Took a ride back to base from Seattle. It's a cursed flight. Bad weather starts off and then things get really bad. The back of the plane. The door opens quickly. That was a nightmare. Clint comes up with a quick fix, but the radios and air system go out. What would happen? It really gets bad when the gas runs out and you get lost in the fog, a long way from the coast of California. The plane has to be thrown out of the sky. There are sharks here, but Clint and the pilot blow up rafts and start paddling madly towards shore. The ocean fights them. Waves flip over Clint's raft, made him have to swim or fly. Hard 2 to 4 miles, depending on who you ask. This is where his Army job turns into a life-or-death situation. Remember that job as a swimming teacher. It might be what helps him get through this while he's so tired and lost. Clint has dreams in the bioluminescent water, but he makes it to an RCA radio station before he gets shocked and cold. He meets the pilot again years later, and it's amazing that both of them are still alive. Clint Stars plays a man who gets away from Alcatraz, Frank Morris, a criminal who bravely swam away from the notorious island prison to get away across the cold San Francisco Bay. Art that looks like life seems like a way to avoid death. Gave Clint the toughness that makes him a good actor. Escape is so realistic, but hey, being in the military is hard work. Clint works part-time at a sugar company to make extra money. $67 a month. It's said that he's dating an officer's daughter, which is a good reason to get paid and take a trip. To Carmel made him think, someday I'd like to live here. Some of his wartime friends, like Richard Long and Martin Milner, will become TV stars. Clint Eastwood traded his spurs for a bad bee and the planes for the city streets in the 1970s and early 1980s. This is when the famous San Francisco cop Dirty Harry was born, who wasn't afraid to break the law to get his man. In movies like Thunderbolt, Lightfoot, and The Gauntlet, where the lines between right and wrong were blurred, the rogue with a badge idea continued. Eastwood also showed his funny side in the Every Which Way movies with his monkey friend, Clyde. This age came to an end with the chilling The Movie Escape from Alcatraz, in which Clint showed that he wasn't just good at playing heroes, a desperate prisoner just as effectively while filming the 1975 thriller The Eiger Sanction. A tragedy happened involving an experienced mountain climber. David Knowles was needed for a few more shots of a climbing scene as a fake double. He teamed up with another climber, Mike Hoover, to finish the job. They were able to get the footage, but then disaster struck. A sudden rock slide sent a boulder flying through the air. Rushing toward the men who were standing on a ledge, Mike Hoover was seriously hurt and fractured, and David Knowles sadly died during the incident. The horrible scene looked a lot like one the team had filmed just a few days before one of the climbers who was still alive died. Told of the shock, saying, "We flew up to that same spot, and there was the scene we had been staging for 2 days. Dave Knowles is dead and hung from the end of the rope. It was amazing how fantasy and reality hit each other so hard." The news was heartbreaking. Clint Eastwood said he felt guilty about the death and was very sad. He almost gave up on the whole project, but his crew, who knew the risks that come with making movies, pushed him to keep going because they thought it was the best way to honor the memory and honor of David Knowles the 1980s and early 1990s. In the 1990s, Eastwood's figures changed. They weren't just tough anymore, they were also sad. He played a pilot with PTSD who was both tight and sad. RPP saw him as a police officer upset about the killer. He chases Eastwood's heroes fought not only outside bad guys but also their own inner demons. As in The Rookie, where his fixation on a case put those around him in danger, this theme continued in White. Hunter Blackheart, a movie director who became obsessed with An Elephant Hunt Unforgiven, was the best movie of this age. Clint went back to his Western roots, but this time as a haunted ex-boyfriend. As Outlaw tried to deal with his violent past, the 2000s and beyond were the years of the grumpy Clint Eastwood. In Space Cowboys, he plays an old pilot who finally gets his chance to go to space after a long wait. He's a retired police profiler who is having health problems while he's looking for a killer. But Eastwood really hit the top of his game in movies like $1 Million Baby, in which he plays an unwilling boxing trainer, and Gina Torino, in which he plays a racist veteran who finds redemption in a surprising way. His most recent movie, Cry, is a masterpiece. Macho keeps up the theme of the grumpy. This time the old man looks weary. Horseman on a Trip Through the Countryside of Mexico, Clint Eastwood's personal life is just as exciting as the movies he's made. His first marriage to Maggie Gyllenhaal was truly epic. Johnson in 1953 seemed to want stability, and Eastwood, who was hesitant at first about getting married, took the jump. But the domestic happiness didn't last long. Soon boredom set in, and extramarital affairs started to come up again and again. The first thing that happened because of this philandering way of life was a daughter. Lori Murray was born from a secret affair and was given up for adoption without Eastwood's knowledge. Years later, Kimberly L. was born from another affair, even though Maggie knew about these wrongdoings. The couple stayed together for a while and even had children together. Kyle and Allison into the world, but the cracks in the wall were getting bigger. By 1979, there were reports that Eastwood was seeing co-star Sandra Locke, which led to the couple's final breakup. Eastwood's romantic choices had effects that went far beyond the news. People have told different stories about Kimber Eastwood's connection with her father. At times, she said they have a strong bond, and at other times, she said they don't. She said she feels ignored and angry, and she even says she begged for a closer friendship. Eastwood was adopted as a baby, and the story of Lori Murray adds another layer of depth to his life. In the 1990s, Lori found out who her real father was with the help of a private detective. Eastwood welcomed her after she reached out, but it's not clear if he ever actively looked for her or just didn't know she existed before her revelation. After starting their relationship on the set of Rawhide, Eastwood was seen with stuntwoman Roxanne Tunis for a while. 14 years and had a daughter, named Kimber, though Eastwood says he didn't know she was his at first.